So it says plugged in and waiting to charge on set schedule 100%. Now it has just shifted to plugged in and charging complete. So that tells us that the battery is fully charged. We should have, I'm betting it will say 27 miles of range, but so we'll take this out. This is a Mopar branded charger, and there's a Jeep logo on the other side there. So standard charger. There's the port with kind of a guide there that tells you what the different light colors mean. And I've got this plugged in to my regular 3-prong home outlet in the garage there. So there we are. You can see the battery has 27 miles of range and charge shows 100%. So we should theoretically be able to drive, you can see it just dropped down to 26. So call it 26 miles on battery power. Hey everyone, welcome to a wind and rain review of this 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xE. So the 5th generation Jeep Grand Cherokee came out in a new 3-row body style for the 2021 model year, and then for 2022 follows it up with a new 2-row body style. So previous generation Grand Cherokee had been on sale since the 2011 model year, and it's still actually in production today, more so for like fleet duty than mainstream production. But either way, the new Grand Cherokee here is kind of a big deal given that the previous one had been on sale for more than a decade. This vehicle has always worn a lot of different hats. You've been able to get these in a really basic rental car spec. They build them as light off-roaders. They build them as middle to high-end luxury cars. And you've even been able to get Grand Cherokees over the years as 6-figure performance cars. So a lot of different applications for this vehicle, and the fact that it's now offered in both 2- and 3-row form better aligns it with other crossovers in its segment. Like for example, the Honda Passport and Honda Pilot. Passport's a 2-row, Pilot is a 3-row. You've also got vehicles like the Ford Edge and Ford Explorer, the Chevrolet Blazer and Chevrolet Traverse. What else? There are more. The Hyundai Santa Fe and Hyundai Palisade. I could probably go on and on, but the theme there is that the Grand Cherokee now aligns with the rest of the midsize crossover segment. The fact that this one is an Overland trim level is kind of interesting, and the fact that it's a 4xE, which is Jeep's branding for its line of plug-in hybrids, that makes it interesting as well. I've got this one fully charged up. It's got a relatively small battery. It maxes out at about 27 miles of range on a full charge. I've had it plugged into the basic 3-prong 120 volt outlet in my garage for about 24 hours, and it seems that that was more than enough time to take it up from 0 to a full 27 miles of range. But if you're serious about EV or even PHEV ownership, you're probably going to want to use a 240 volt outlet, which is like what you use for your oven. Either way, let's do a little tour of the new Grand Cherokee here and then take it for a drive. So styling of the new Grand Cherokee doesn't deviate too far from generations past. It's more of an evolutionary change rather than revolutionary. I've still got the 7-slat grille up front. Of course, they weren't going to get rid of that. And then, well, two things combined to make for these rather obnoxious blue recovery points. This is an Overland trim level, which is one of 2 off-road oriented trim levels for the Grand Cherokee. You've got the Trailhawk, which is more of a mainstream off-roader, and then we'll call the Overland here a luxury off-roader. But the Overland trim gets you the recovery hooks, and then the fact that it's a 4xE means that said recovery hooks are painted bright blue. I don't know if I like this. I think it's a little bit unbecoming of what is a $73,000 vehicle, but you be the judge. Whether you like these, I guess, is up to you. The Overland trim level does come with this set of mild all-terrain tires. These are Goodyear Wrangler Kevlar all-terrains. This is the same tire that comes on the Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road. It's a pretty light-duty all-terrain tire. These are designed to still prioritize fuel economy, but offer a little bit better traction and puncture resistance when you're off-road. This Overland model does have an air suspension system. It's pretty interesting. It has about 5 different levels of adjustability. I'm showing each one here in a little time lapse, but they range from a low level for like a load height all the way up to an extended height off-road mode that is only available at low speeds. Moving on, given that it's an Overland trim, it comes with a trail rated badge there because again, this is one of 2 off-road oriented trims for the new Grand Cherokee. Here's the Grand Cherokee word mark down the side with a backwards American flag there. You can see 4xe branding kind of gets into every little corner of this vehicle. There's a blue trim behind the chrome letters there that make up Grand Cherokee. Moving down the side, you'll notice a contrast black roof. So that starts at the base of the A-pillar, makes its way all the way up top, and then finishes down here at the D-pillar. Kind of a 2-piece approach here with a chrome strip bisecting it at the rear. Around back, the taillights are much narrower than on the prior generation of the Grand Cherokee. That's probably the easiest way you can tell if you're looking at one of these new Grand Cherokees from the rear. They're kind of connected by this black plastic trim piece. Again, the Jeep emblem on the back here is outlined in blue, as is the 4xe emblem, and well, even your Overland emblem there has that bright blue in it. Not really loving the color choice there. As for the cargo area, well, this is a 2-row midsize SUV, so cargo volume is on par with what you get from other 2-row midsize SUVs. Not a whole lot to cover back here. There are 4 tie-down points. They are metal, though the housings for them are plastic. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. Looks like there are provisions for a cargo cover, so it would fit in right there and then slide out and clip in right here. We have a 12-volt DC outlet. It looks like a couple of hooks for maybe a cargo net. And then here is the button for opening and, well, closing the rear hatch. Given that the Grand Cherokee is a unibody SUV rather than body on frame like, say, the Toyota 4Runner over there that I'm also reviewing this week, the spare tire lives under the rear cargo floor rather than up underneath between the frame rails because, well, there aren't any frame rails. So you do get a full-size spare with this one, but the limited size of this spare tire well means that you're probably not going to be able to fit a larger than stock size spare in the spare tire well here like you can in some body-on-frame vehicles like the 4Runner. So that is one of the limitations of the unibody platform when it comes to modifying a Grand Cherokee for going off-road. And in case you were wondering, underneath this cover right here is your tow hitch. So it sits pretty close to the back of the vehicle. It doesn't stick off very far at all. But 2-inch receiver hitch, and then a 7-pin and a 4-pin connector. And apparently I've just triggered the hand-waving rear hatch release. Or foot waving, rather. But I triggered it with my hand. Here's the key. It's a pretty nice key design. So it says Jeep on the back side there. It's rectangular. You've got chrome plastic finish right there, and then a black plastic surface here. It's kind of a matte black plastic, and then the buttons are rubber. So you've got unlock, lock, press twice for remote start, press twice to open the rear hatch, and then a panic button. Okay, so we don't have a window sticker for this one, but we do have this information sheet right here. So you can see this is a 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xe. It uses a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder turbo plug-in hybrid engine. So there's an electric motor and a small battery. Total output is 375 horsepower and 470 pounds-feet of torque. And it still uses a traditional 8-speed automatic transmission. I mentioned this is the Overland model. There's an idea of everything it is optioned with. That all rolls up to a total price of $75,305 when you factor in a rather ridiculous $1,795 destination fee. Since we don't have a window sticker with fuel economy information, I printed out this separate sheet from fueleconomy.gov. It shows 4 different models of Grand Cherokee. So you got this one, the 4xe, 2022 with the V6, 2022 with the V8, and then the previous generation with the V6. all with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. You can see the 4xe without a full charge is rated at 23 mpg combined when it's functioning as just a hybrid. But if you start with a fully charged battery, the EPA rates the 4xe at 56 mpg-e. And it also suggests a 25-mile fully electric range. As for the regular Grand Cherokee V6, 22 combined with four-wheel drive, V8 with four-wheel drive, you're looking at 17 combined. And then in the prior generation V6, you were looking at 21 mpg combined. As for the interior in this $75,000 Overland model, it's pretty nice. The design and materials used feel pretty premium. There's still some Chrysler parts bin stuff like this on the door panel here, this HomeLink button, this whole overhead console feels like something you might find in like a Chrysler Pacifica minivan. Steering wheel's pretty nice. It's fully encased in leather, so leather. It's leather wrapped. You've got some paddle shifters on the back here. Then there are volume and tuning buttons on the back of that steering wheel. Again, Chrysler parts bin stuff. You'll find this in Jeep, Ram, and Dodge and Chrysler vehicles. So the idea that this is a $75,000 premium luxury SUV, it's maybe challenged a little bit by the usage of parts you'll find in vehicles costing, maybe $30,000. But overall, the stuff you touch and the stuff you interact with is pretty good, and this is a really comfortable vehicle to drive. Infotainment system is pretty good, super sharp. This is the optional 10.1-inch unit. Kind of surprised that it's not standard, but either way, it's easy to use. It's intuitive, high-resolution screen here, pretty simple to navigate. You've got all kinds of different options, different vehicle options. There's some off-road pages that eventually come up. So you've got like a pitch and roll meter. There's a view that shows you what the suspension is doing. That's kind of cool. Lots of different menus to explore here in this infotainment system, in particular in these more off-road oriented Grand Cherokee trims. Moving down, the Hvac is all really good. They haven't ruined it by trying to make you go through the infotainment screen to adjust things like fan speed. That's adjusted via a button right here, and there is some visual feedback via the infotainment screen. Same goes for temperature, and then you've also still got buttons for heated seats, ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, and then volume knob and tuning knob here. That's all really great. They haven't tried to reinvent the wheel with this infotainment and center stack layout. They've just made it better. I should add, these buttons over here to the left of the steering column control the different hybrid modes. So you've got basic hybrid mode. There is an electric mode that prioritizes battery usage. It says electric mode saves fuel for later use. And then e-save mode says e-save mode saves battery for later use. So hybrid mode automatically adapts for most efficient driving. That will mix the use of both the gas and electric motors, whereas electric prioritizes the battery, and then e-save prioritizes or uses the gas motor the most. Oh, up top here, there's some fun stuff. So right here is a button to turn on the regenerative braking. So the vehicle, there we go. So this button adjusts max regeneration. So there it's off, here it's on, and I'll demonstrate that in the driving portion, but it really does change the way the vehicle behaves. With max regeneration turned on, you almost don't have to use the brake pedal, which is kind of weird, frankly. Also up here is a button for turning on this passenger screen. Why don't we finish on the center console here, and then we'll go take a look at this passenger screen. So underneath here, there we go. You've got a wireless charging pad, 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, an aux port, and then an HDMI port and a 12-volt outlet. Then that wireless charging pad. The shifter is this dial right here, so it's pretty nice to use. So reverse, neutral, and drive. Then you go back all the way over to park. This paddle right here controls the different terrain modes. So you've got rock, sand, mud, snow, auto, and then a sport mode. And then over here, you've got the 5 different levels of adjustability for the suspension. We're in the second from the bottom, which is appropriate for day-to-day usage. Here, let's look at the backup camera. So it's fairly high resolution. Here's a 360-degree top-down view, and then here's a view out the rear. Colors look good. The image isn't distorted at all, and the resolution is pretty good. So this is a pretty nice backup camera. Here you've got the button to go into four-wheel drive low range, and then this turns on a hill descent control feature. And then right here are two cup holders, and then in the center console box there are two levels to it. This is kind of like a coin level, and then deeper storage right there. Let's hop over into the passenger seat and take a look at this passenger screen. So here's this screen, certainly one of the more interesting features in this Grand Cherokee. So you can turn it on via the button here, or you just touch it. And it's effectively an entertainment and kind of vehicle management screen for the passengers. So you can like connect your phone, you can play music independently of the rest of the vehicle through, say, Bluetooth headphones. There's also a video component. You can pull up the navigation and say, enter in a destination for the driver so that they don't have to be bothered with that. And then you can also even pull up the cameras, so you can get the same camera feed from around the vehicle that you get on the infotainment system when, say you pull that up here or put the vehicle into reverse. So kind of clever. It's a wide screen, kind of short, and something I noticed is the bottom corner. Sorry, there's a glare there. But the bottom corner is actually cut off by the curvature of the dashboard. So I'm sure it's a rectangular screen. The bottom right corner here is just being covered by that trim piece. But yeah, I imagine we'll start seeing these in other vehicles. They feel a little bit gimmicky, but I imagine on like a road trip or in situations, of course, where you're driving along with a passenger, they can probably come in handy. So that about does it for the front seats. Let's check out the second row. Okay, here we are in the second row of the new Grand Cherokee. You can see there's plenty of knee room. This is a mid-size SUV, so you'd expect there to be room for at least two people to ride along back here comfortably. But you've got plenty of knee room. Over here in the door panels, you've got your window controls. They are fully one-touch up and down, which is great. There are also sunshades in the door panels. We've got cargo nets on both front seat backs, and then on the back of the center console here, independent HVAC controls, heated outboard rear seats, and then plenty of connectivity ports down here. Once again, you've got two USB-A ports and two USB-C ports, plus a 115 volt 3-prong AC inverter. Then in the armrest, cup holders, and that's it. It's about all you'd expect. Overhead, there's a rather large panoramic sunroof. It comes all the way back to here. So when this thing is open, it lets a whole lot of light in. Okay, going for a ride in this 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4XE. There's a lot going on with this car. It's a brand new vehicle, new generation. It is an Overland trim level, which is interesting because it's kind of like a luxury off-road trim, and not too many other automakers do that. And it's a plug-in hybrid 4XE model, meaning that we're gonna do a little driving solely under electric power here, which is always interesting. So right now, I just did that bit of driving with the max regeneration mode turned on. I just turned it off, so the vehicle will drive more like a normal vehicle, and then we'll turn it back on to demonstrate what it's like driving under max regen. Power output here is pretty good, 375 horsepower, 470 pounds-feet of torque. That's pretty wild. there's 60 miles per hour, so plenty of torque. We felt all 470 pounds-feet there. That was all done under, was mostly done under electric power. You can definitely thank the electric motors for the instant takeoff there when I hit the gas. Acceleration felt pretty good. It was actually pretty fun to hammer it in this thing, even if it isn't necessarily lightning fast. The gas engine is on. See, now without max regen turned on, we coast as one does in a normal vehicle. I'm gonna go ahead and turn max regeneration on. I don't know if you could see us slow down there, but I basically have to have the gas pedal applied at all times. If I let off the gas, we slow down really quickly. So that takes some getting used to. You can almost come to a full stop without using the brakes in this max regen mode. And you would use this if you wanted to preserve or charge the battery as much as you can while driving. I honestly don't love it. It's weird, but if I wanted to charge the battery, I would use it. So right now this suspension is in normal mode. Here's our first speed bump. We took it at around 24 miles per hour. Felt pretty good. The air suspension is pretty nice. There's our second speed bump. Yeah, it makes for a pretty smooth ride. And I have to think it would offer benefits over rough terrain off-road as well. Here's our third speed bump. Let's go 35. Wow. Wow. That felt really good. I thought there was going to be some clattering or a rough landing when we came down off of that speed bump there, but this suspension is really nice. I would say surprisingly nice. It was notably softer going over that massive speed bump than really in any other vehicle I can remember testing. As I mentioned before, backup camera is pretty good. It's relatively high resolution. The image isn't distorted. Colors aren't really washed out. It's probably not the best that I've experienced, but it's certainly well above average. Okay, so there is our look. There is our look at the all-new 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee, at least in two-row form. The three-row came out for 2021. But three interesting things about this vehicle. First of all, it's all new, though the engines aren't, the mainstream engines, although this 4xe trim is new. We'll get to that in a minute. But overall, it feels like an evolutionary change for the Grand Cherokee. There's still some previous generation parts bin stuff that I'm noticing here, still some Chrysler parts bin stuff, but for the most part, keep in mind this is a $75,000 example, but for the most part feels pretty nice. I think this Overland trim level is kind of fun. It mixes off-road capability with a lot of nice luxury touches. You won't get the luxury side from, say, a Toyota 4Runner, nor will you get the off-road capability side from like a BMW X5, say. So I think this Overland trim level would compete with, say, like a Land Rover Discovery, maybe. That's the closest competitor I can drum up to this vehicle, because it is pretty unique. And then you have the 4xe powertrain, 27 miles, 25 to 27 miles of electric range on a full charge. That's still a relatively small battery, but for errands, that makes for a relatively efficient vehicle. 56 mpge according to the EPA, and then 23 mpg combined once the charge is depleted. That's okay. That's better than any other Grand Cherokee, but still not necessarily great. But when you factor in 375 horsepower and 470 pounds-feet of torque, then things start to get interesting. As of right now, I think this is probably the powertrain to get for the Grand Cherokee. It's relatively efficient and it's pretty powerful, and I like the way it drives. The electric motors make for a really nice, smooth ride, as we demonstrated on our little acceleration run back there. So overall, the Grand Cherokee here, it still targets the same customer. They still cover the same parts of the market. Maybe you could argue there's now this hybrid option, which covers a different part of the market. But for the most part, I think in terms of the volume selling options, the Grand Cherokee here is certainly a nice improvement over the previous generation, but again, more of an evolutionary change than anything truly revolutionary. And there's nothing wrong with that, because this has been a great selling vehicle here in the United States for many years. I'm sure you'll still get these at the rental car counter in lower end trim levels, but having experienced this higher end Overland 4xE model here, I'm pretty impressed. Thank you for watching.